I was going to ask you, so what are your inflation expectations?
Right, so my expectation about inflation is there will be a lot of it suddenly. And a lot of it, I mean something that people can't explain away, but the authorities can't explain. I say 4 or 5%, let us say. So think about what that would mean. So much of our speculative apparatus is powered on these 0% interest rates, hedge funds and the professionals who invest with
Because that's what they can borrow at.
Yeah,
right.
And why wouldn't you? Can't blame them. So they're borrowing at nothing. Banks are paying nothing on deposits, so banking margins are fat.
Tell me what this means as far as our investment strategy is concerned.
Nothing's going to be good, what again? So think how hard it is to hold back a cash reserve in this time when cash yields nothing and yields a negative rate, because the inflation we all see is something more than zero, right? Cash yields zero. That's hard. It's doubly hard because your stupid neighbor who doesn't watch this program is making a lot of money in the stock market. How hard is that not to participate? You can't not do it. But
just like the housing market
right,
a couple of years ago.
Right. Right. But stop and think what it would mean if there were a 4%, a persistent and undeniable, you can't explain away this 4% inflation rate. It would mean that the Fed would clear its throat and say, in the marble-mouthed way it speaks, that the party's over.
Right, and they do it pretty quickly.
Oh, and so suddenly, the commodity markets have been the great haven for inflation-fearful people. I don't think they do very well in this moment of reconsideration about interest rates and leverage. So suddenly everything would fall out of bed, I think. I think gold would right itself, silver would right itself, because they're money that I think would come into their own at the end of the cycle of disillusionment. But for a time, I think there would be terrific chaos in investment markets, meaning terrific opportunities. People would be selling stuff they shouldn't sell. So people with liquidity, which again pays nothing and is impossible to hold when your friends are getting rich without it, liquidity would come into its own very suddenly.
So cash would no longer be trash. Cash
Correct.
would be precious.
It would.
And valuable.
Yeah. Even dollar bills, which I'm in the habit of disparaging because they're paper.
Jim, the gold standard. You've been an advocate of the gold standard for a long time.
I was an advocate of the gold standard when there actually was a gold standard.
Yes, you actually were
1914. It would take a terrific collective rethink, and it would take a great unfrocking of the authorities and the experts who now not only who don't even disagree with this. It's worse. They don't just say, "Grant, you're wrong." They say, it's a smiling condescension one can't stand.
They dismiss it.
Right, sorry, right. So, but I think if I'm right, and I think I am, if I'm right about the dynamics of the federal debt, if I'm right about the absence of a check on our continued running of the most profligate deficits, and if I'm right about the essential, the political, the social and political immorality of monetary arrangements as they now exist. That is to say, savers getting nothing and the speculators getting most everything. It seems to me not only is the mathematics of a gold standard compelling, but also the politics are compelling.
So Jim, you have in the past, when you've been on Wealth Track, and you've in other places have bemoaned the fact that you are viewed as a bear, because in Grant's Interest Rate Observer, you always have a long idea and usually a short idea as well. So what's your long idea?
I'll tell you what we're looking at now. We're looking at commercial real estate. What is new and what is really interesting about the commercial real estate market these days is there is an enormous spread in returns between what is popular and liquid and shiny, that is so-called trophy properties in the big cities on the one hand, that's on the one hand, versus less liquid, more out-of-the-way properties, outside. Some of them are tarnished, but some of them are just plain fine, but they are not at the corner of Park Avenue and 54th Street. So there's an office property recently changed hands in Milwaukee, the first such sale in a year, such as the illiquidity of the commercial real estate market. It changed hands for a cash-on-cash return without financial leverage of 8%. This is fully leased, 10 years, one tenant. Sounds like a pretty substantial property. And 8% versus the 4 or 5%, increasingly 4% you get on these core properties. So we intend to do a great deal more digging and try to surface investments that offer good valuations now and that offer some inflation protection because rents will be will escalate as the cost of living goes up. So that's our new idea. My idea is that perhaps one goes out and buys rather more of Annaly and rather less of the other things, keeps a substantial cash reserve for that moment, which I think is coming, in which the realization of a new inflation cycle shakes up valuations and prices across the broad spectrum of financial assets, and you have the liquidity ready to take advantage to buy things on the cheap.